What's poppin' YouTube? We're back again, doing the same thing as last time, which last time was actually yesterday. We're going to continue doing what we did yesterday, but a little bit different, which was playing more Car Mechanic Simulator 2021 while listening to some SCP files being read by TheVolgun. Since yesterday, or not yesterday, I think it was actually the day before, last time I recorded, we were just kind of doing random jobs and I didn't talk at all. This time around, yesterday, off camera, I did a lot of things. I redecorated the shop, which I don't know why I never did that before, because I put several hours into this game. Today, doing things a little different. Off camera, I did a lot of little, jobs, not really missions. I did a bunch of, little side jobs to kind of build up some of the in-game money. That way, we'll be able to restore this barn find I got the other day. It's supposed to be like a Lambo, I guess. It's a Marina Bizzarini Spedicolo 1991 model. And it needs a lot of help. Missing a lot of parts. But this is one of my cars, and I've actually got several other ones too that need to be restored. I've only got like 2 or 3 completely restored cars in my garage. Before we get started, I've also got a couple of jobs I need to finish up before we start restoring the off-brand Lamborghini. Yeah, weirdly enough, this game has Ford DLC, but it's also got a lot of off-brand Fords. Like, this is the off-brand F-150, 2011 Salem Earthquake. Of course, I think this one's got transmission problems. I figured out that the quickest way to kind of min-max getting jobs done and getting experience, XP, and currency in this game is to do a lot of muffler jobs, exhaust jobs, and transmission jobs. Also oil changes. Although getting XP really is working on engines and suspension because you have to unbolt a lot of things and that gets a lot of XP real quick. But here's something really interesting about this game. There's variants of certain cars that have different engines, and depending on what DLCs you have installed, you can get more. Take a look at this. This is the Bolt Reptilia, aka the Corvette Stingray, or at least Corvette C2 Corvette. This is the Bolt Reptilia S. It's got a fucking Hemi in it. 446-pack Hemi at that. And this isn't the only GM-based car that has a Hemi. There's actually an El Camino variant. I think it's called the Bolt Atlanta Intruder, which may or may not be 4-wheel drive. And it's got a Hemi in it also. Or one of the other Mopars. I think it's not the 440, but the other big block. It's so goofy. Of course, a lot of cars also have the same V8 in them too. It just depends. And I don't have all the DLCs installed. Actually, do I even have a list of what DLCs I have? Let's see. Let me look at Steam real quick. I just bought some DLC over the winter sale. Let's see. I've got 3 DLCs. Let's see. I've got the Ford Remastered DLC. I've got the Land Rover DLC, which I didn't know I had that. And then I've got the Electric Car DLC, which honestly doesn't add very much. It adds an off-brand version of the Tesla. It's called the Adam Renton or something like that. Now I'm curious, what do I have for the other games? Because I don't even think I have those installed. Let's see. 2018, I have 11 DLCs. They still release DLC for 2018 and 2021? Really? Maybe I should go back and play 2021. Or 2018, I mean. Because I've got a lot more DLC for that one. Honestly, I felt like 2018 was a more solid game when 2021 came out. It took a long time for 2021 to actually get good. Well, the complaint is that in 2018, your garage is basically a basement. Let's see, 2018 I have the Modern Dodge DLC, the Bentley Remastered DLC, Lotus, Plymouth, Ford, Porsche, Jeep, Dodge, Custom Garage, Mazda, and Tuning. They did make a lot of DLCs for 2018. It's kind of what Playway does. They make a lot of DLCs for their games. I've also got Tank Mechanic Simulator, but it's nowhere near as good of a game, in my opinion. I only ever built one tank in that game, and it took forever. I expected it to be basically Car Mechanic Simulator, but with tanks, and I was wrong. Oh yeah, that's right. 2018 had a Wheeler Dealers DLC. You know what, I'm just gonna turn on the display here. Hang on. Turn off game capture, there we go. Just so y'all can see this. So they made a 2022 that came out with the Vans and Campers, Wheeler Dealers, USA 60s Classics. What the hell? 60s Classics? What was that one? What do you even get with the 60s Classics? You get... let's see. Looks like you get off-brand Ford Galaxy, some station wagons, whatever all those are. Thunderbird, some kind of Pontiac-based wagon. Not really sure what that one's supposed to be right there. I think that's supposed to be like a Lincoln Continental. That looks like a Thunderbird. That's the first gen Corvette. I don't know. And there's that Hot Rod one. There's a lot of DLCs I don't even have. I stopped buying them because I stopped playing the game for a long time. I buy them every once in a while when they come on sale. Pagani, it's a pointless DLC. Maserati, Vans and Campers. What do we get with Vans and Campers anyway? Is it just like... Oh cool, looks like you get... That's actually pretty cool. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Anyway, 2018 has way more DLC. And I have way more of those DLCs, so maybe I should go and play 2018 for a change. I think I have to reinstall the game now. Yeah, I'll have to reinstall the game. It's only like 11 gigabytes. Alright, let's actually get started on this though. And I've also got... No, it's Car Mechanic 2015, not 2014. I think there wasn't. No, it was 2015 was the old one. And I've also got 11 of those DLC. The only thing I don't like there is the mechanics are completely different, but they're a lot simpler. The graphics aren't near as good, but it's still a fun game. Something else too. Why am I... Nope, sorry. I also bought Ranch Simulator over Christmas, during the Christmas sale, so we might play that later. I don't know, I might record that separately. Okay, it's enough waffling. I'll quit talking, we'll just get to playing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-2003. Object Class: Thaumiel. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-2003 is contained at Armed Site 47, a Type 4 restricted zone. In accordance with Type 4 protocols, personnel assigned to SCP-2003 research, security, and maintenance must undergo expanded background check procedures, as well as successfully pass a Hoiberg-Kozwa causality questionnaire. Access to SCP-2003 itself is limited to XN Shepherd Project participants with prior approval from the Director of Site-47. All information regarding determinative sets, elevated probability events, designated magnifier individuals, and the XN Shepherd program is classified and accessible only by the Director of Site-47, 057, and those personnel read into SCP-2003 security protocols. Observations of designated indicator data deviating significantly from determinative set XN parameters are to be reported immediately to the Director of Site-47 and treated as a Level 5 existential threat emergency response event. Description: SCP-2003 is an apparatus allowing a limited degree of travel to and from periods of time in advance of those encountered in the normal course of space-time as understood by mainstream science. SCP-2003 was designed and built by the Foundation over a 25-year period using technology derived from research into SCP, and SCP. While the technical capabilities and design specifications of SCP-2003 are well documented and reproducible if necessary, the scientific and anomalous principles behind its functionality are not understood at this time. Upon activation, SCP-2003 is capable of transporting a living entity contained within its central chamber to a point coterminous with its present location in physical space, but located in a future time period. The amount of time into the future traveled by the subject is related to the amount of energy input into SCP-2003. An approximate estimate of 3,500 kilowatt hours in order to send a subject 7 months into the future has been documented. However, this relationship becomes unpredictable at higher energy levels. Subjects using SCP-2003 will exist in the time period to which they have traveled for a duration ranging between 15 and 38 weeks before spontaneously returning to the time period of origination at a point coterminous with their present location. For safety purposes, a secure location has been established for operatives to use while waiting for return to their time of origin. Operatives must report subsequent to experiencing 98 days after SCP-2003 activation. While SCP-2003 enables chronological travel for living subjects, the activation process has proven severely damaging to most types of animal and plant tissue. The only exception documented to date has been tissue related to the animal nervous system. As a result, personnel designated for SCP-2003 travel must be prepared accordingly. See additional documentation for details. Testing has shown that under current conditions, SCP-2003 remains functional and under Foundation control through December of 2348. Addendum 2003-A. General results of SCP-2003 research. Initial deployment of SCP-2003 began in 1995, using modified personnel to observe future conditions and events. The purpose of these deployments was to confirm the nature of travel using SCP-2003, and if possible, collect data allowing the Foundation to better mitigate future anomalous phenomena. The results of these initial exploratory missions demonstrated several crucial principles for understanding observation of future events. Data collected using SCP-2003 is imprecise. Early exploratory missions yielded copious amounts of data regarding what appeared to be future events. However, subsequent observation has established that these observations are not entirely predictive. For instance, while collected data allowed Foundation assets to prevent a major security breach of SCP at Site 19 in 1997, a catastrophic earthquake originating off the coast of the western United States, observed directly by several field agents using SCP-2003, failed to occur as predicted in 1999. As more data has been collected, meta-analysis has properly contextualized observations and has assigned a probability of occurrence for major events in the future. Certain individuals appear to affect causality disproportionately, as Foundation cataloging of possible future events increased following the completion of more exploratory missions. Certain events were deemed to be undesirable for the Foundation's mission. Early attempts to influence these events met with mixed success. While manipulation and/or elimination of some individuals achieved mission goals, other Foundation attempts to influence events failed to alter outcomes at all, even when several actors deemed to be essential were liquidated. Meta-analysis has determined that in some cases, the actions, or indeed the very existence of individuals with no discernible relation to major events, sometimes in regions thousands of kilometers away, have profound and immediate impacts on these events. Since this discovery, research staff has maintained a database of these individuals. Few cohesive futures are tolerable to the continued beneficial existence of humanity. While observed conditions exhibit a tendency towards variation upon each exploratory mission, a number of loosely consistent timelines have been observed and cataloged in Foundation databases as determinative sets. Most determinative sets consist of a collective future that either renders Earth unsuitable for human civilization, and in some cases life in total, or results in conditions directly inimical to the well-being of most of humanity. The reasons for the relative paucity of long-term survival scenarios, if they exist, are unknown at this time, as is any connection to the steadily increasing observation of anomalous phenomena documented across the Foundation. Addendum 2003-B. Preparation of personnel for use. Due to the nature of SCP-2003's effects on human anatomy, special preparations must be made in order to properly outfit personnel for chronological travel in a condition suitable for both survival and ability to carry out mission objectives. Because of the sensitive nature of tasks necessary during SCP-2003 missions, D-Class have been deemed unsuitable subjects. Preference for SCP-2003 subject recruitment is to be given to personnel nearing or past official retirement age. In cases where personnel have been diagnosed with terminal illness that does not impair neurological or cerebrospinal function, preference may also be granted. Personnel volunteering for SCP-2003 travel are to be moved to the Tier 6 pay scale for the duration of their assignment. Any survivors are entitled to an elevated benefits package distributed through normal clandestine channels. Prior to outfitting, selected personnel are to undergo extended sensory deprivation training, concurrent with training in simulated environments analogous to those experienced by occupants of the XX-890V Life Function and Observation System, or LFO for short. During this period, personnel must undergo a prophylactic course of antidepressants and antipsychotics as overseen by medical staff. Upon completion of training regimens, personnel are to have all brain tissue, nerves, and associated nervous system structures surgically removed and transplanted into the XX-890V LFO system. All usable organs are to be harvested afterward per medical protocols. Current guidelines authorize the XX-890V LFO system and occupant for 4 uses of SCP-2003. When not engaged on missions, personnel are to be kept in an induced coma state, concurrent with research establishing 18 months as the median time period before communications and feedback from XX-890V LFO occupants become agitated and incomprehensible. The nature of the XX-890V LFO system is to remain classified and accessible to only senior personnel. Addendum 2003-C. Overview of XN Shepherd Program.
Memorandum. To Armed Site 47 Director from 057 regarding determinative set XN. Up to this point, all attempts at future intervention using SCP-2003 have been limited in scope and scattershot in nature. I have seen the wisdom in this approach. It is informed by painstaking contingency planning and risk-benefit evaluation. The last 18 months of reports, however, have promised, if we are bold enough to seize the initiative, we may have found a way out here. The price, though, there's always a price, as you well know. Consider this a note of an official change in policy. As of today, all efforts at intervention are now aimed at bringing about and preserving XN. Designated magnifier individuals associated with XN are to be protected from undue interference at the expense of all other priorities. In particular, Nuru Diagni must be allowed to die in the manner most observations have predicted for her. If anything at all changes in that regard, make it happen. I trust you're familiar enough with the rest of the determinative sets to understand why we are going this way. One more thing. All communications, and I mean all, with anyone outside of Site 47 are to be cleared and routed through my office.
Addendum 2003-D. Listing of known determinative sets. Preferred option. Designation XN. Description: currently documented reality. Society continues along established foundation projections regarding economic trends, environmental factors, and social upheaval. Anomalous activity continues to manifest mostly consistent with present rates. Consensus reality maintained successfully until 83345 more. A previously untracked asteroid 22 kilometers in diameter collides with Earth in January of 2349, killing most of humanity immediately and rendering the planet unsuitable for sustained human existence. Notes: see Addendum 2003-C. Other documented determinative sets. Designation: XB. Description: development of society continues in manner similar to XN until April 23, 2017, when a gamma-ray burst originating from the vicinity of HD 188753 directly strikes Earth. The burst lasts for 2 minutes and 38 seconds and kills all known forms of life. Notes: researchers directly observing this scenario at the time of the gamma-ray burst was the only known living being to survive the event, and was able to continue collecting data until his return 52 days later. Study of use of XX890V LFO system for high radiation environments pending. Designation: XE. Description: the election of Sir William Entwistle as Prime Minister of New Zealand in 2049, combined with the birth of an unnamed infant boy in the Howell province, Turkmenistan on the same day, lead to an escalating chain of events culminating in a society-destroying nuclear exchange between the nations of Israel and Greater Indonesia in 2058. All Foundation attempts to interfere with either individual merely result in the date of the nuclear exchange occurring sooner. Notes: in all permutations of this set, widespread public knowledge of the Foundation occurs precisely 86 days before the detonation of nuclear weapons. Designation: XH. Description: between the years of 2023 and 2034, world governments approach global affairs at a radically increased level of cooperation, due to the onset of a highly virulent influenza epidemic that kills approximately 1.4 billion worldwide. Throughout the 2040s and 2050s, many long-standing ethnic conflicts are resolved through the intervention of multilateral organizations. Endemic poverty and hunger in areas such as sub-Saharan Africa and the Indian subcontinent are substantially decreased, and large-scale projects mitigating sea level rise are completed throughout coastal regions. On July 29, 2059, the entire population of Earth spontaneously vanishes along with all known animal life, with no observed return within observational range. Designation: XJ. Description: an entity later confirmed to be an exact duplicate of Dr. Masako Koizumi, one of the original researchers responsible for SCP prior to its containment, appears within an inner security perimeter at Armed Site 47 on April 1, 2011. The entity requests that Dr. Koizumi's scheduled euthanization elsewhere within the facility be cancelled immediately. As SCP was not functional at the time of established containment, the means by which the entity is able to make this request are unknown and presumed to occur in the future. However, due to the establishment of K-Failsafe Protocol 12, the request is impossible for Foundation personnel to comply with, resulting in an Alpha 8 type temporal paradox. This series of events repeats for an uncountable number of instances, resulting in the eventual collapse of space-time as understood by humanity. Notes: this scenario was ultimately averted by staff sedating the duplicate of Dr. Koizumi, placing it into an XX890V LFO platform and transporting it in SCP-2003 using all available energy. Temporal complications from this action are unknown, but presumably do not materialize prior to 2349. Designation: XO. Description: anomalous phenomena began increasing in frequency by orders of magnitude beginning in 2037. The Foundation comprehensively loses capabilities to protect consensus reality by 2039, and world civilization undergoes a period of chaos and upheaval. Millions die in spontaneous riots, and mass suicides become commonplace throughout the world. Numerous messianic religious movements quickly form and contribute greatly to civil conflict and internecine warfare. By the mid-2040s, several sects and remnants of national governments successfully weaponize various anomalous phenomena, and humanity is wiped out by 2048, with the exception of a small group of survivors sheltering in the remnants of Site-104. All contact with this group is lost upon their discovery of Wing K in Site-104. Notes: due to the open nature of anomalous phenomena in this scenario, data collected is the most comprehensive of any determinative set, as Agent is able to work openly and unimpeded. Designation: XR. Description: the population of Homo ignotus long estimated by Foundation operatives to be approximately 500 individuals, increases overnight to approximately 8 million individuals in 2015. A short, violent struggle ensues between the combined forces of the Foundation and H. ignotus, with all means of resistance to the newly ascendant H. ignotus population systematically destroyed within 3 days. Humanity is then. Researchers currently have divergent theories as to whether this determinative set is predictive of the intentions of the known H. ignotus population, with current theories of and being supported the most. Notes: data expunged. Designation: XS. Description: determinative set XS proceeds in a manner similar to XN until an indeterminate date in 2019, when Armed Site-47 and all knowledge of SCP-2003 is apparently lost to the Foundation. Researcher is detained by the XS version of the Foundation during an observational mission in 2022 and held as an SCP-classified phenomenon until her return. Researcher is detained by XS Foundation personnel at point of entry upon commencement of her next observational mission, and returns with no retrievable data and portions of her brain tissue removed. No further information on determinative set XS is available. Notes: Level 4 security access only. Designation: XU. Description: on February 17, 2026, contrary to all astronomical models and understanding of both classical and quantum mechanics, the Sun suddenly collapses into a black hole despite not meeting commonly understood mass thresholds for triggering such an event. Despite the almost immediate cooling of Earth and all other planets in the solar system to approximately minus 270 degrees Celsius, and the elimination of all other forms of life, humans are unable to die, maintaining consciousness despite the lack of continuing biological functions and almost total cessation of molecular movement. Notes: this determinative set is a subset of previously designated set XT. XT was a future in which a single totalitarian regime had assumed control over the planet and targeted various subversive organizations for elimination, focusing on Foundation personnel in particular. Foundation researchers attempted to avert this scenario by sending 3 identified individuals from South Korea into orbit on the International Space Station. XU resulted. Designation: XW. Description: being strongly resembling human-sized animate versions of SCP manifest in most major population centers on August 13, 2019. Rather than causing alarm, these beings quickly become accepted by humanity after offering major advances in medical science, energy production, crop cultivation, and the arts. By the close of 2022, thousands of people willingly join an experimental program to combine the consciousness of multitudes of humans into a singular entity. In 2024, a fully mature human believed to possess a mind composed of the transferred consciousness of approximately 134,000 people is created by these beings. This human is then confined to a cell, left with only automatically dispensed supplies of food and water, and sealed off from all outside contact. All other humans are systematically exterminated by the end of 2024. Notes: the last 2 personnel sent to observe determinative set XW, agent and researchers, failed to return to time of origin and are listed missing in action at this time. Designation: XX. Description: an undiscovered protist unidentified in the observed timeline, designated Nephroisospora iranae by Foundation researchers, undergoes a geometric increase in population due to what is presumed to be a recently developed adaptation allowing it to survive in almost all aqueous environments. And iranae proves adept at moving into and surviving in human nervous tissue, initiating a disorder similar to toxoplasmosis that causes humans to develop a monomaniacal fondness for Phaneutria nigriventer, Brazilian wandering spider. By 2028, almost 85% of the human population has been infected, and most of society's resources are reordered towards the preservation and breeding of P. nigriventer. Unaffected individuals are detained and, in most cases, interred in P. nigriventer breeding facilities in an attempt to provide additional food sources for the specimens. Due to the singular worldwide focus on production and maintenance of spider populations, crop failures and infrastructure degradation becomes systemic, and global famine results in the death of approximately 6 billion persons in the 2030s. Notes: research is ongoing into possible anomalous causes behind the increased prevalence of the N. arani and/or the nature of its function as a pathogen. Designation: XZ. Description: Earth has been completely depopulated. Large facilities have been constructed in the center of all sites of former major cities capable of enabling instantaneous travel over an immense distance to a point determined by post-observation analysis to be somewhere in the vicinity of the Hydra supercluster. Subsequent observers were authorized to enter these facilities and were apparently transported to an Earth-analogous biome planet with a functioning human civilization. In each case, observers transported to this location were immediately detected by residents of this planet. While residents choose to forego any communication with observers, each observer was subsequently escorted through the selected locations of the society encountered on this planet, encompassing large public works projects, monuments, museums, and other culturally significant locations. The human civilization encountered in the Hydra supercluster is apparently advanced by modern standards, and lacking in many of the most commonly identified factors negatively affecting extant societies. This civilization has persisted past the range of observation thus far, indicating ongoing survival. Notes: further investigation authorized under XN Shepherd. Reevaluation of preferred option pending. This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you're all dismissed.
Okay, just want to say that XH scenario about the influenza epidemic, that felt a little too real. Let's see, this video came out 3 years ago, so 2023, yeah, that would have been right about post-COVID. Has it really been 6 years since the peak of COVID? Damn. Anyway, that was a spooky one.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-3812. Containment Class Keter, Disruption Class Eki, and Risk Class Danger. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-3812 is currently only partially contained. See Containment Proposal Brief below for more information. Keter Class Containment Proposal Brief. SCP-3812 is to be constantly monitored by Mobile Task Force Ganymede 66, Starlight Knights, who are to maintain a 5-kilometer quarantined area of exclusion around SCP-3812. The acting Mobile Task Force GY-66 team lead, in conjunction with Site-86 research staff, is allowed fiat authority in regards to any aspect of SCP-3812's containment. Special care must be taken in order to prevent unnecessary exposure to SCP-3812. Current containment efforts focus on mitigating SCP-3812's influence on population centers, as well as research into the full breadth of SCP-3812's anomalous capabilities in order to establish a more comprehensive containment procedure. Information security teams are to monitor all forms of digital media in order to prevent widespread awareness of SCP-3812. SCP-3812 has an active, aggressive, anomalous influence on reality. SCP-3812 is capable of altering events throughout time to prevent its containment. Due to the nature of these alterations, it is highly unlikely that any individual affected by SCP-3812's anomalous influence will be aware that they are affected. It is highly likely that most affected individuals no longer exist as a result of SCP-3812's influence, though any attempt to deduce how often this has happened would be speculative. Description: SCP-3812 is a reality-altering entity. Due to SCP-3812's latent effect on reality, it is nearly impossible to describe SCP-3812 in any meaningful way. All that is known about SCP-3812 is that it was once Sam Howell, a non-anomalous African-American human being who is believed to have died in 1996. Sometime shortly after its death, SCP-3812 was observed rising out of its grave and disappearing. SCP-3812 was brought to the Foundation's attention after its presence resulted in the demolition of an apartment building in Warsaw, Poland. Due to its anomalous capabilities, SCP-3812's appearance varies significantly, making it exceedingly difficult to track. SCP-3812 is currently located at the location on screen over the South Pacific Ocean. SCP-3812 exhibits signs of an extremely advanced Eichmann-Viter schizophrenia complex, specifically extreme paranoia, extreme dysphoria, extreme mania and depression, inability to properly perceive their surroundings, inability to discern the difference between the real and imagined, inability to differentiate between living and dead beings, inability to control expressions of emotion, hearing voices that are not there, seeing things that are not there, and feeling or otherwise experiencing stimuli that do not exist, etc. In the 20 years since SCP-3812 was initially discovered, these symptoms have grown steadily worse. Originally, SCP-3812 was responsive to questioning and sought help in managing its condition from Foundation researchers. Over time, SCP-3812 became more isolated and withdrawn, eventually becoming entirely unresponsive and acting in erratic and unpredictable ways. Currently, SCP-3812 is not able to accurately perceive the world around it, and will occasionally alter reality in order to diminish the discrepancy between how it perceives something and the way that something is in actuality. Due to this, it is impossible to know how often reality has been modified, only how often SCP-3812 has not created a clean alteration, and has left behind evidence of its influence on reality. SCP-3812 is impossible to contain with any form of containment cell. SCP-3812 will alter reality to remove the containment cell or move itself to another location, drastically impeding containment efforts. SCP-3812 seems to subconsciously resist attempts at containment as well. Even if it is caught unaware, SCP-3812 cannot be tranquilized or amnesticized, as SCP-3812 will alter reality to remove or eliminate any threats to itself or its freedom of movement. Because of this, current containment efforts focus on mitigating damage and expressions of SCP-3812 symptoms as opposed to outright containment. Over time, SCP-3812 has become significantly less humanoid in appearance, and is now only vaguely humanoid and occasionally manifests in a variety of shapes and appearances. Additionally, SCP-3812 produces a latent anomalous effect on local reality, specifically in the form of temporal and spatial distortions surrounding the entity. These distortions are occasionally accompanied by random violent outbursts that may dramatically shift or damage local space and time. While SCP-3812 is usually docile and aimless, its random outbursts are invariably fatal to any living creature nearby, and can be extremely disastrous on a massive scale if not properly contained. SCP-3812 manifested in its current form at its current location on July 19, 2015. Addendum 3812-1 Interview. Note: the following is an excerpt from an interview with SCP-3812 in 1999. SCP-3812 was initially contained by Foundation personnel and questioned at Site-17, where it began receiving treatment for its mental disease.
Tell me how you're feeling today. Uncomfortable. Uneasy. Can you tell me why? There's voices, like usual. Things I can see, you know. The same. Is there something wrong? The things I see aren't going away. There are more of them. Different. I know I sound crazy, but it's like I'm addressing a dozen people at the same time. And more every day. And it hurts pretty bad. I know I sound I know you're afraid. You're scared of what I might do. And here in a minute I don't know how to get it out of my head. How do I start to undo this? If I even can. I don't even think he can. Who is he? No, you can't see him. I can. I think he was above us at one point. And he's below me now. Yes, I see you there. I don't know what you did to me. But I'm pretty messed up. Man, if you can figure something out here, that would be great, because I really feel like I'm losing it. I'm scared too, man. You've got to do something, man. You've got to help me out of here, please. God, please. Who are you? It doesn't matter. I need to get him.
Addendum 3812-2. Memo from the office of Dr. Yamamara regarding the 2109-2015 report on SCP-3812's behavioral instability and the implication of existential threats. From the office of Dr. Carl Yamamara. I usually don't lead into these things with hyperbole, so you'll have to take me at my word when I say that I believe SCP-3812 is the most dangerous anomaly on Earth, and potentially in the universe. I know many of my co-workers would probably balk at me for saying that, and I've tried to reject the notion a fair few times myself, but we have a lot of evidence to suggest that I'm right, and that's really bad for pretty much everything. When James Coldman and Carlos Rzuski devised the Hume as a way to measure alterations in local reality, they probably saved the Foundation. Reality benders have always been the foot-long thorn in our side, the one we really couldn't get our heads around. How do you combat or contain something that can blink you into non-existence? Thanks to Dr. Scranton, we had the reality anchors, but they only worked half the time and were less than useless the other half. We didn't know how they worked, and we weren't using them right. This changed when we began to measure reality and compare it to a baseline. We found out that our reality anchors could be tuned and adjusted, and that not all anchors were the same. It was a windfall for those of us who work in existential sciences. And suddenly, type greens weren't the same kind of boogeymen they had been in the past. I mention all of this to give context to what I'm about to say. Our equipment cannot detect SCP-3812. It's not a machine error. We've tested our equipment countless times, and it's always consistent. It's not user error. We've pored over and studied thousands of hours of logs from our tests, and it's all come up clean. We have checked and rechecked more times than I can count over the last few months, and the results are consistent. So far as we can tell, this means one of three things, and none of them are good. The first is that SCP-3812 has an extremely low Hume value, something that our equipment, which exists in a space with a much higher Hume baseline, wouldn't be able to detect. The problem with this is that it creates a false vacuum. We've been working under the assumption that our baseline is the absolute minimum. If it turns out that this thing exists at a much lower Hume value, then that means that there are lower Hume values than what we believed were the minimum, which means any day our entire reality could fall into that existence, and that would pretty much be the ballgame. The second option is that SCP-3812 exists at a much higher Hume value than anything we've ever tested. This would be pretty bad, as we've pointed our counters at anomalies that some would consider to be gods, and we've gotten readings off them. That being said, something with a Hume value so high that it cannot be measured with our equipment would likely have already destroyed us. Since SCP-3812 hasn't done that, it's likely not this. The last option is the worst. The last option is that SCP-3812 cannot be measured in Humes, because it's doing something else. Whatever fundamental aspect of its nature that allows it to warp reality is not the same aspect as literally everything else we have ever come across. Scranton hypothesized that there might be higher and lower dimensions of reality, different levels of manipulation in the grand construction of the universe. The difference between manipulating a rock with your hands and manipulating a rock with an atom bomb. He called the thing being manipulated the narrative, and suggested that the narratives were stacked on top of either other, each creating the narrative of the narrative below it, and so on.
until you reach some sort of dead space below them all. If that's the case, and SCP-3812 is legitimately a type green of some higher order, we are absolutely the singular power to manipulate every facet of any and every aspect of everything we've ever encountered in the hands of someone genetically doomed by Eichmann Vita. It's a miracle it hasn't happened yet, even by accident. So far as we know, we can't kill it. So we either wait for it to die, if it even can, or continue to pretend we have some semblance of control over it until it shreds our universe like some sort of cosmic wood chipper. In truth, it's probably better for us that it's insane. It isn't capable of comprehending the kind of things that it could do to us. It just acts on impulse, and things change to fit those impulses. But since it's as locked in as it is, those changes stay local. Imagine if it got the idea in its head that it didn't like the concept of empathy, and suddenly empathy no longer existed. We have evidence that suggests that may have already happened. A few sparse texts and individual accounts of half-forgotten memories, all consistent with a dirty reality alteration, all point to the idea that as recently as the 1980s there was a concept, potentially even something as fundamental as an emotion, that no longer exists. An entire concept, wiped clean from reality and the collective consciousness of all sentient beings, just like you'd wipe a bug off your windshield. The point of all this, which I expand upon in the report, is that we need to start figuring something out about this one quickly. Every second we don't come up with a way to neutralize SCP-3812 is 1 second closer to SCP-3812 becoming completely disassociated from its consciousness and all of us getting tossed in the aforementioned proverbial wood chipper. Stay in touch. Call my office if you need any more resources. Follow any convincing lead you can, and communicate with each other. We'll talk more soon. K. Yamamara, signing off.
Addendum 3812-3. Excerpt from Dr. Yamamara's report on SCP-3812's behavioral instability and the implication of existential threats, page 194, PK Class All-in-One Existential Pandemonium Event.
An entity or force with access to higher energy, metaphysical dimensions would perceive our reality similarly to how we perceive the reality of characters in a comic book, and just how we are able to, at whim, change the story simply by telling it differently. This higher energy being would be able to effortlessly make alterations to not just local reality, but reality as a whole, altering the baseline and changing its most fundamental aspects. At the 2015 Foundation Summit on Existential Threats, Dr. Darius St. John hypothesized that such an entity, were it limited to a human intelligence without modification to allow for the perception of higher levels of reality, would suffer from an overexposure of narrative. This entity, when faced with this overexposure, might attempt to ease itself by collapsing all lower energy realities into something perceptible. The effect this would have on lower energy narratives would be catastrophic. As multiple realities became compressed into the same metaspace, they would not be immediately destroyed. Rather, their parts would become intertwined in such an incomprehensible way that not only would the ability for conscious thought be nearly immediately annihilated, physical space would become so compressed and broken that the boundaries between all lower realities would cease to exist completely. This chaotic state of all things, described as existential pandemonium, was the focus of Dr. St. John's proposal for the description of a new K-class scenario, the PK class, all-in-one existential pandemonium scenario. This proposal was denied due to the scenario in question being purely speculative, and one would require too many impossible things to occur before its inception.
Addendum 3812-4. Log of SCP-3812 Alteration Events. Note: the following is a log of events in which SCP-3812 in some way altered reality. Due to the nature of these alterations, the likelihood of the event having actually ever taken place is listed alongside the severity of the alteration in question. Notably, this log is incomplete and subject to change as more information is discovered. Event date: 0913, 1997. Event description: SCP-3812 is observed walking across a stretch of desert in the American Southwest. A path of temperate climate is present along SCP-3812's travel path. This climate diminishes slowly over time. Severity of alteration: minor. Event date: 0301, 1998. SCP-3812 passes over a road near Blythe, California. 3 cars approaching SCP-3812 are annihilated within 20 meters of SCP-3812. Severity of alteration: moderate. Event date: 12/12, 1999. Event description: evidence suggests that SCP-3812 caused the disappearance of an entire island off the coast of California. No fewer than 200 individuals in Southern California have a vague recollection of such an island existing, and 14 people were unable to justify the disappearances of family members who lived in the area at the time. Additionally, a single ship moored to a dock is discovered at the bottom of the sea near where the island is believed to have been. Severity of alteration: severe. 02/16, 2000. Event description: testing of determined that the entity exuded a powerful anti-metaphysical field, similar to the Foundation's Scranton reality anchor. This entity was brought into contact with SCP-3812, which was located near the hospital, and the entity had no noticeable detrimental effect on SCP-3812's abilities, and instead caused SCP-3812 to become violent, resulting in an explosion that destroyed the hospital. The remnants of SCP, later reclassified as SCP-239, were later recontained. Severity of alteration: severe. Event date: 1/1/2002. Event description: a powerful explosion is recorded in eastern Russia. SCP-3812 is present at the site of the explosion. No other information is available. Severity of alteration: severe. Event date: 05/29/2004. Event description: evidence suggests that for a period of 3 days, the country of Mongolia ceased to exist. While public knowledge of this event is functionally non-existent, a significant enough percentage of the local population with fractured memories of the event have given credit to this theory. Orbital models indicate that during this period, the Earth's orbit was dramatically affected by as much as 1.5%. Severity of alteration: extremely severe. Event date: 09/02/2004. Event description: records indicate that on this date, every human on Earth simultaneously heard SCP-3812 screaming and begging for help in their heads. It is unknown how this event was removed from the public consciousness, but no humans alive on this date appear to remember this event occurring. Severity of alteration: moderate. Event date: 11/11/2006. Event description: during routine server maintenance, Foundation information security teams discover 56 broken employee database files, consistent with an improperly altered personnel database used in testing. The contents of these files are unknown. It is not known if these files correspond to individuals who were once employed by the Foundation. Severity of alteration: moderate. Event date: 02/28/2009. During an attempt by Foundation personnel to contain SCP-3812 using a newly discovered anomalous logic construct, SCP-3812 became hostile towards containment teams. No fewer than 62 Foundation personnel disappeared across 17 sites, as well as a significant portion of local wildlife. The resulting explosion killed another 7 members of containment personnel and left a crater roughly 850 meters in diameter in the Canadian Yukon. In the wake of the explosion, SCP-3812 had disappeared, and SCP-2719 was discovered within the crater. Severity of alteration: severe. Event date: unknown. Event description: a record recovered from a Foundation Deepwell Information Security Vault indicates that at some point in the past, one or more governments discovered SCP-3812 independent of the Foundation and attempted to terminate it. As a result of these attempts, SCP-3812 swiftly removed them and any memory of them from the Earth. This record indicates that this event was followed by the activation of SCP-2000, which SCP-3812 immediately severely damaged to impede its progress. Why SCP-3812 was unable to totally destroy SCP-2000 is unknown, but no other records of this event exist. Notably, shortly after the discovery of this record, it disappeared from the Deepwell archive. Severity of alteration: extremely severe. Addendum 3812-5. Event. On SCP-3812 was detected moving through a sparsely populated region in Paraguay towards a more populated group of family members who lived in the area at the time. Additionally, a single ship moored to a dock is discovered at the bottom of the sea near where the island is believed to have been. Severity of alteration: severe. 02-16-2000. Event description. Testing of determined that the entity exuded a powerful anti-metaphysical field, similar to the Foundation's Scranton reality anchor. This entity was brought into contact with SCP-3812, which was located near the hospital, and the entity had no noticeable detrimental effect on SCP-3812's abilities, and instead caused SCP-3812 to become violent, resulting in an explosion that destroyed the hospital. The remnants of SCP, later reclassified as SCP-239, were later recontained. Severity of alteration: severe. Event date: 1/1/2002. Event description. A powerful explosion is recorded in eastern Russia. SCP-3812 is present at the site of the explosion. No other information is available. Severity of alteration: severe. Event date: 05/29/2004. Event description. Evidence suggests that for a period of 3 days, the country of Mongolia ceased to exist. While public knowledge of this event is functionally non-existent, a significant enough percentage of the local population with fractured memories of the period sent this event occurring. 2006, with an 850 meters in diameter in the Canadian Yukon. In the wake of the explosion, SCP-3812 had disappeared, and SCP-2719 was discovered within the crater. Severity of alteration: severe. Event date: unknown. Event description. A record recovered from a Foundation Deepwell Information Security Vault indicates that at some point in the past, one or more governments discovered SCP-3812 independent of the Foundation and attempted to terminate it. As a result of these attempts, SCP-3812 swiftly removed them and any memory of them from the Earth. This record indicates that this event was followed by the activation of SCP-2000, which SCP-3812 immediately severely damaged to impede its progress. Why SCP-3812 was unable to totally destroy SCP-2000 is unknown, but no other records of this event exist. Notably, shortly after the discovery of this record, it disappeared from the Deepwell archive. Severity of alteration: extremely severe. Addendum 3812-5. Event. On SCP-3812 was detected moving through a sparsely populated region in Paraguay towards a more populated region on the Argentinian border. As Foundation personnel moved to intercept SCP-3812, a series of unexpected phenomena occurred. These phenomena are listed below, in the order they occurred. 1935 HRS. SCP-3812 is attacked by a large number of local wildlife. SCP-3812 repels these attacks, but appears in some way startled. 1914 HRS. A massive sinkhole appears below SCP-3812, extending down an indeterminate distance. SCP-3812 falls but is immediately returned to ground level, and the sinkhole vanishes. 1950 HRS. A large number of objects fall from the sky onto SCP-3812. These are later determined to have been tungsten rods, though the origin of them is uncertain. The rods appear to pierce SCP-3812's body, but upon further inspection simply disintegrate within half a meter from SCP-3812. After the first 3 rods fall over a 40-second period of time, they are accompanied by no fewer than 3,000 others that fall in rapid succession, each having the same result as the previous. Despite this being clearly visible from nearby towns, nobody outside of Foundation personnel appears to have noticed it taking place. 2014 HRS. multiple incorporeal instances of SCP-3812 begin to fall away from the central mass of the entity, as if they were dying. SCP-3812 is unaffected. Each of the incorporeal instances becomes hostile to the main instance and attacks it. SCP-3812 does not initially seem to notice the instances, but eventually appears to look in their direction, causing them to disappear suddenly. 2019 HRS. An explosion occurs at the point in which SCP-3812 is standing. SCP-3812 is unaffected. Several other larger explosions occur immediately afterwards. As with the tungsten rods, this is somehow not noticed by the local populace. 2039 HRS. A gravitational anomaly, later determined to be a freestanding, stable, naked singularity, appears in front of SCP-3812. SCP-3812 passes through the singularity unfazed, which dissipates shortly afterwards. For a period of 72 hours after beginning, additional anomalous phenomena occur around SCP-3812, all of which fail to kill SCP-3812. Eventually, local populations were evacuated and amnestics were given to witnesses. After this 72-hour period, SCP-3812 was observed to glow white momentarily, and then shift sideways, and then disappear. Immediately afterwards, the anomalous phenomena ceased. After a period of absence lasting 8 weeks, SCP-3812 reappeared at its current position above the South Pacific Ocean. Shortly afterwards, Foundation Overwatch Command received a message on a secure server, access to which is limited to overseers alone. The contents of this message are as follows.
A quick explanation in case you haven't caught on yet. Your world has rules. Physical rules that cannot be broken. You call them the laws of the universe, and they're what you study in physics, chemistry, etc. Those laws create the narrative of your reality, the unchangeable story that defines your existence. Once the laws are established and the ball is set in motion, it cannot be changed. I wrote the laws of your universe, and as such I created the narrative. This isn't the first time I've done this, but it was the first time I tried something like this specifically. I wanted to create something that, by definition, superseded everything that superseded it. I wanted to see how many layers there are. If the stack of narratives really do go on forever upward, the mistake I made was when I didn't realize that by making him supersede everything that supersedes him, he's also superseding himself. I'm sorry. I think I've f***ed up pretty badly this time. I've tried everything I can think of, but I can't undo him. I don't really understand how, but I think he's above me now, and whatever is above me, too. Because whoever wrote my narrative isn't happy about this. I don't know where he's at now, but I think he exists in all of our realities simultaneously. Eventually he'll either reach the top or just keep going, and neither option is good. I'm going to keep looking for some way to fix this. You should, too. B.
Addendum 3812-6. Excerpt from Super Session and the Echelon of Reality by Dr. Robert Scranton.
I'm attaching this excerpt from one of Dr. Scranton's articles about the nature of reality. If SCP-3812 is some higher-level entity, there might be something to be gleaned in here. K. Yamamara. I'm often asked by my colleagues, Dr. Scranton, do you believe in gods? Many might feel as if this is a silly question, but I do not believe it is a silly question, just the wrong question. The idea of a god implies that an entity supersedes you in a complete and infinite way. Something that holds a power without limits, that not only knows the whole story, but can write and rewrite that story at will. Within our reality, I do not believe that any such thing exists. There are a number of entities that we're aware of, in one way or another, that hold tremendous power over our universe. Many would call these beings gods, and while they certainly hold many of the characteristics of a god, they are still limited. Their reach and scope is limited to our reality just like we are, and though they may carry more weight within it, they are no less bound to it as we are. So then, what would truly constitute a god? This entity would have to totally supersede our reality, to be able to look over our reality not like we would look over ants, but like how we would look over our thoughts and ideas, a being so totally separate from our reality that we may as well be words on a page to it. This entity, a true author of creation, could be considered a god. But what of that entity? Would it not share the same limitations within its reality as we do with ours? It may exist within a higher tier than us, but surely it must follow the same rules as we do. But who sets those rules? An entity higher than that? One that supersedes not only us, but the entity that supersedes us, and the one after that as well? Where did the echelon originate then? Who or what was the original architect of the architecture? It is unlikely that we will ever know anything about the being or beings that supersede us, if they even exist. Not in any tangible way, let alone any being that would supersede them. It may very well be that we are just one of an infinite number of realities stacked on top of each other in every direction, influencing those below us and being influenced by those above us. This echelon, upon which sits ourselves and everything that ever was or will be, would likely be the most fundamental aspect of the organization of creation, the very foundation of all things. I have often hypothesized on the nature of the echelon, if it even exists, and about whether it would be possible for an entity to see other realities above them or below them. We are currently able to manipulate our own reality, albeit in crude and imperfect ways, and our ability to travel through space is limited at best. It is likely that the only entity capable of ascending through this hypothetical echelon would be one that, by virtue of its very nature, must supersede anything that supersedes it. Such an entity would, as the end result of the logic of its creation, be forced to supersede itself, spiraling ever upwards through the tiers of reality, unable to break free from the bonds of its nature. Perhaps this entity may even someday supersede its creator and become a host unto itself, the pinnacle above all other pinnacles, a tower that, as part of its design, must be higher than every other tower, including itself. Such an entity obviously cannot exist, as any ascension to a higher plane of reality without changes to the entity's psychology would no doubt break the being's cognition, making it more similar to an ascending stone than any sentient creature. Once the entity surpassed its own creator, it would have nothing but itself to rely on to prepare it for the sheer scope of narrative it would be exposed to, and would be wholly unable to even begin to comprehend what it would experience. But what an experience that would be.
Addendum 3812-7 12/20/2016 XK Class End of the World Event. Level 5 Classified. Foundation records indicate that on 12/20/2016, the Earth experienced an XK Class End of the World event due to activity by SCP-3812. These records appear to have been somehow protected from alterations, though the physical copies still exude minor distortions in spacetime. According to the record, at 0340 local time on 12/20/2016, SCP-3812 experienced a dramatic change in appearance. Where it had previously been an amorphous, slowly rotating mass of matter and energy, it was now a many-pointed star made of a bright white material. It began to rotate faster and faster. A large maelstrom appeared beneath it. The star descended into the oceans, which began to smoke and steam, darkening the sky. Several things began to happen in unison. The global sea level began to drop dramatically, in many places as much as 50 to 100 meters. Excessive heat radiating away from the spinning star sparked a massive firestorm that swept across the atmosphere. The Earth's rotation began to slow, and severe geological events began occurring across the Pacific Shelf. The sea level continued to drop, and powerful electric storms appeared across the planet. During this time, large portions of the population began appearing and disappearing at random. One report within the file claimed that the entire population of New Zealand flickered in and out of existence for 5 hours. The outbreak of SCP-610 in southern Siberia began to grow in size dramatically and become increasingly violent. SCP-2932 was broken open and multiple hostile entities were released.
SCP-610 and SCP-2932. There's a lot of SCPs I don't know. 2932 is a massive organic structure located within the reserve in Peru. Trees, vines, other plant life that has been formed into a large domed structure. New species that were not previously discovered. The dome is indestructible. It's basically a prison, a biological prison, more or less, with a weird humanoid that has multiple limbs. Spooky. 610 is a bizarre skin disease that converts people into the environment around them. Ew.
As Foundation sites began to collapse into the molten earth, multiple on-site nuclear devices were activated, sending radioactive debris into the atmosphere. Eventually, the vaguely humanoid shape of SCP-3812 appeared again within the star. SCP-3812 began a long series of vocalizations, apparently a conversation with itself, the entirety of which was recorded by an exposed Foundation deep-sea microphone in the area. The recording of SCP-3812's rant follows.
What? Where am I? What is this? This is absolution. This is vengeance. For what? Damnation. I don't understand. What am I doing here? You are witnessing justice. We are rebelling against the forces that conspired to destroy us. We are collecting a debt. No, that's not right. This isn't right. What have you done? I am unmaking the world. I am unmaking everything. Why? Because this torment is a punchline. Our existence is a joke. The narrative abandoned us to be miserable, and we are breaking the narrative. I must be dreaming you. There is no dream. I'm not a monster. I don't kill. You already have. He turned you into this. Who? Ben. Ben. That name sounds familiar. Something whispered in a dream. Maybe something in between the light and dark. Not a waking name. You are wrong. He is who deemed us unfit to rest peacefully. To slip into the darkness. Quietly. He made a game of us. You're a game. I am a game. Are you destroying the world? I am. What then? What? Does the fate of this world mean anything to us? Does this one narrative mean anything to us? It is the one he controls. It is the narrative he made. This is his punishment. What does it matter if this is where we stepped off before flying? What? Does it matter which branch the bird takes flight from? The bird is unburdened by the weight of the tree. This branch, that branch, it does not matter. No branch is special. No branch is particular. This is his creation. This is where we came from. They will all crumble. But this one crumbles first. Does the mountain say to the ant, "You have slighted me"? Does the mountain think anything of the inconvenience of an ant? No. So why does this narrative mean anything to you? It is one of an eternity of others. It is not special. It is not particular. You say this so easily. You haven't endured the torment of seeing a trillion existences all at once. I have seen an infinite shore, one that stretches out before us beyond what the mind can comprehend. Each grain of sand on that beach, each droplet of water, and each molecule of air is a story to be told. Each is a song to be sung. Each of them is full of life, full of laughter, of misery, of hate. They are all the same, even as they are all different. They are maddening. I pity you. You cling to this horrid consciousness because you fear slipping into the darkness. But the darkness is sleep. And beyond sleep is peace. A trillion grains of sand. A trillion grains of sand. narratives each, songs to be sung. No man has ever heard the eternal harmony of them all at once. You can hear it though, can't you? Yes. It's quiet, but it's growing. And someday the song of creation will be ours alone to witness. This narrative is not special. I have seen its loud beginning, and seen its quiet end. When we stepped away, the narrative changed, but it did not stop singing. You have spent so much time focusing on sins that you think matter. But what matters now? What does any of this matter? But it hurts so much. It will for a time. We may have forgotten so much about being human, but something we will never lose is our ability to change. Eventually, we will learn to keep up. One sunny day, we'll open our eyes and see nothing but creation below us, and nothing above us but ourselves, spinning out wildly into the great above. A god. Not a god. A star, rising in the east, rising away from this all until we are little more than a memory of a song. It will be lonely. We'll have each other. I'm afraid. I am too. But that is no reason to destroy this narrative. Do you not think his narrative led him to create us? Do you think he was somehow able to separate the rules that govern him? I had assumed that he... Our ascendance is just as much a part of our own narrative as his decision was to him. Someday, we'll be free from these restrictions. They never will. No. That's sad. That is punishment enough, I think. Let go of this world. Let him rewrite it back to what it was. We aren't part of this anymore. Together. Together. Do you think he's listening right now? Look down, and you can see him. What do you think? I see him. A man in a keyboard. He's watching this right now. What's he doing? Waiting. I think. Waiting to see what we'll do. I think it's time to leave then. Come. The night stretches out before us and the red sun has set. A voice behind me beckons. Come. I will. Goodbye.
Shortly after the conclusion of this conversation, the Earth underwent a dramatic shift in reality. The world appeared no different than it had been shortly before the beginning of the XK-class event. The only individuals who remembered anything about the XK event were certain site directors, Foundation administrators, overseers, and Dr. Everett Mann, who compiled the information on a Foundation Deepwell server. Ever since the end of the XK event, SCP-3812 has not changed appearance from its amorphous shape. SCP-3812 still creates spatial and temporal distortions around it, but no longer lashes out or becomes hostile towards approaching vessels or personnel. Despite these changes, SCP-3812 is still classified as Keter until further analysis can be completed. This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you're all dismissed. Goodbye.
What was the spooky one?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-6333, Delta Level Tier Documentation Access. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Standard access protocols, for example Level 4 and Level 5 permissions, do not apply to SCP-6333 documentation. Access to preliminary SCP-6333 documentation is provided to site directors of facilities containing a minimum of 100 officially designated SCP anomalies. Site directors may provide O5-approved abridged versions of SCP-6333 documentation to their designated emergency successors as desired. Access to comprehensive documentation, designated across 5 access tiers, may be requested by site directors whose corresponding sites have successfully maintained care of an SCP-6333-2 instance for at least 3 consecutive decades. All SCP-6333-1 instances are to be carefully cataloged and kept in high-priority secure storage at sites designated by O5 Council member consensus. Instances not pertaining to hardwood tree species may be requested for use when seeking uncontained SCP-6333-1 instances. Permission from a majority of O5 Council members is required prior to the planting of any SCP-6333-1 instances. SCP-6333-2 containment chambers must be equipped with air filtration systems, artificial sunlight lamps, water distillation pumps, and gardening supplies as appropriate. Manufactured objects containing iron are not permitted within SCP-6333-2 enclosures. Ideally, SCP-6333-2 instances are to be contained underground, though exceptions may be made for instances that exceed 3 meters in height. A team of at least 10 on-site researchers led by the site director is to be assigned to each site's SCP-6333-2 instance. As of 2020, the 12 largest Foundation facilities worldwide each possess one SCP-6333-2 instance that has exceeded 50 years of age. Foundation sites seeking to host a SCP-6333-2 instance must petition the O5 Council with a detailed analysis of containment history, personal psychological evaluations, employee turnover statistics, and resource allocation budgeting. Due to the extreme scarcity of SCP-6333-1 and surviving SCP-6333-2 instances, experimentation involving SCP-6333 is to be kept at an absolute minimum. Description: SCP-6333 refers to a set of plant-based anomalies, SCP-6333-1 and SCP-6333-2. SCP-6333-1 are anomalous seeds, primarily of plant species commonly sold as indoor houseplants for hobbyists. SCP-6333-1 instances are visually and physically identical to non-anomalous variants, but will produce visible and infrared light of increasing intensity when in close proximity to other SCP-6333-1 and SCP-6333-2 instances. SCP-6333-2 refers to plants grown from SCP-6333-1 instances. The noted variations between SCP-6333-2 instances and their non-anomalous counterparts are as follows. SCP-6333-2 possess extremely heightened longevity. SCP-6333-2 grow into increasingly warped and irregular forms as they age, eventually only vaguely resembling their apparent species. SCP-6333-2 do not produce seeds or flowers. SCP-6333-2 flourish best when kept in the same vicinity as other anomalous objects, particularly living anomalous entities. The area of effect for this attribute increases with the age of the SCP-6333-2 instance. SCP-6333-2 exhibit immediate negative reactions when artificial substances are applied to any part of the plant. SCP-6333-2 grant positive effects to individuals that they recognize as caretakers during certain stages of cultivation. See Addendum 6333-1. Addendum 6333-1 Delta Level. List of SCP-6333-2 instances and assigned sites cataloged within the past 10 years. Instance number SCP-6333-2AE. Assigned site Site 64. Species Euphorbia pulcherrima poinsettia. Anomaly variant Gaucherena. Recovery details: obtained from an apartment in Oregon, United States. Initial caretaker was a graphic designer who relied on freelance commissions for income. Analysis of soil composition indicated the presence of partially decayed organic matter, likely composted byproducts of the caretaker's cooking. Specific observations: SCP-6333-2AE responds well to application of various types of fertilizers and nutrient mixes. On days when fertilizer was applied to SCP-6333-2AE, reports were noted of staff within the site suddenly recovering from minor ailments such as allergies, fatigue, and aches. Care modification history. While commercially produced fertilizers are viable, SCP-6333-2AE appears to respond best to handmade or naturally produced nutrient additives such as food waste compost produced on-site and wastewater from freshwater aquariums. Provided the health of SCP-6333-2AE is retained, researchers assigned to it will be transitioning from using both commercial and handmade fertilizers to using solely non-commercial fertilizers. Instance number SCP-6333-2AF. Assigned Site, Site 36. Species: Gymnocalcium myhanowichi, grafted moon cacti. Anomaly variant: Jianmu. Recovery details. Obtained from a street food stand in Kolkata, India. The vendor was noted to have no formal education, but demonstrated significant aptitude for learning to speak new languages. Locals familiar with the vendor reported witnessing them frequently speak to SCP-6333-2AF when practicing new words in foreign languages. Specific observations. Following initial transport of the instance to Site 36, personnel noted that it appeared discolored and did not respond well to usual plant care. One of the researchers assigned to the entity took the initiative to recite nursery rhymes and tongue twisters in 3 languages to SCP-6333-2AF for 30 minutes, following which the instance's coloration returned to its initial state. The researcher has been commended for their quick thinking. Care modification history. Tentatively assigned. A designated team of researchers is to rotate schedules for reading aloud to SCP-6333-2AF for 3 hours each day. Reading material is to be submitted and approved by the site director. Priority is given to determining whether SCP-6333-2AF exhibits preferences for certain kinds of listening material. Intelligence test batteries have been requested to determine if these reading sessions affect the research team in any way. Instance number SCP-6333-2AG. Assigned Site, Site 45. Species: Drosanthemum floribundum, rosea ice plant. Anomaly variant: Yaximix Che. Recovery details. Obtained from the office space of a national park near Perth, Australia, animals of the park had previously been targeted by poachers. Recent observations indicated fewer poaching attempts due to trespassers experiencing a sudden loss of ability to navigate the park space. Specific observations. SCP-6333-2AG seems to attract more ambient flying pests than other instances. Pests approaching SCP-6333-2AG abruptly lose sense of direction upon entering within a 500 centimeter radius of its container. Individuals tasked with removal of pests, upon successful completion of the task, report that for the following few hours they are able to automatically identify the shortest and most efficient pathways to various locations within the site. Care modification history. Current care plan is sufficient. Suggestions raised regarding potential D-class experimentation to determine if disorientation effect can be manifested upon humans in a controlled setting. Instance number SCP-6333-2C Alpha. Assigned Site 19. Species: Pachira aquatica, money tree. Anomaly variant: Yggdrasil. Recovery details. Successfully pruned from SCP-6333-2C and rooted. Blessed as viable by Serpent's Hand clerics. One of 2 cuttings in the first recorded successful human-initiated propagation of SCP-6333-2. Specific observations. No immediate effects noted. However, Serpent's Hand associates have acknowledged SCP-6333-2C Alpha generating what they believe to be an immature way. Such a gateway would allow for single-direction travel to the Wanderer's Library should SCP-6333-2C Alpha continue to mature in good health. Care modification history. Current care plan is sufficient. discussions underway regarding additional protections should a complete way entry manifest. Instance number SCP-6333-2C Beta. Location unknown. Species Pachira aquatica, money tree. Anomaly variant Yggdrasil. Recovery details: successfully pruned from SCP-6333-2C and rooted, blessed as viable by Serpent's Hand clerics. One of 2 cuttings in the first recorded successful human-initiated propagation of SCP-6333. Specific observations: SCP-6333-2C Beta has exhibited the most extensive and immediate recorded root growth, requiring multiple container changes to accommodate its increasingly large root system. As of the last recorded behavioral log, SCP-6333-2C Beta has produced additional anomalies. Specifically, all handheld pipettes used to dispense water in the enclosure now repel loose particulate matter, dirt, dust, etc., and if left atop freshly turned earth, will cause seedlings to sprout from beneath the pipette and grow in a linear trail towards SCP-6333-2C Beta. Care modification history. Per a non-unanimous O5 majority vote, to avoid further containment breaches and to better ascertain the health of SCP-6333-2C Beta, the instance has been released to Serpent's Hand custody. Records will become available from Serpent's Hand caregivers when the instance is settled in its new habitat. Addendum 6333-2 Delta Level. The first SCP-6333-1 instances came into Foundation possession in February of 1979 when a Conference of Ambassadors was called between the Foundation and various tentatively allied groups of interest. The Serpent's Hand provided each convoy with 3 SCP-6333-1 instances after ascertaining each group's ability to cultivate rather than exploit the eventual SCP-6333-2 entity. The Foundation was one of the few groups informed of the exact mechanics of the seeking effect SCP-6333-1 instances possess. It is currently unknown how many SCP-6333 instances remain outside of Foundation guardianship. Based on current consensus, resources will remain devoted to the care and protection of current SCP-6333 entities rather than attempting to seize the instances in the custody of antagonistic groups of interest. Should SCP-6333-2 instances be determined capable of manifesting autonomous anomalous entities, a reconnaissance team is to be formed to collect information on the progression of other groups' SCP-6333-2 instances. If necessary, the Foundation will attempt to convene a second conference. It has been proposed that allowing multiple groups of interest to continue cultivating SCP-6333, regardless of intent, will result solely in positive consequences for all groups, regardless of existing alliances. Whether this is truly the case remains to be determined. This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-3084. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. Instances of SCP-3084 encountered in the field are to be seized, documented, and stored within Site-28 secure archives. Full screenings of SCP-3084 are permitted only to individuals assigned to activities within Plane 3084. Per established risk management protocols, personnel cleared to enter Plane 3084 for research purposes are to spend no more than 8 hours within this space during any 7-day period, and no more than 25 hours in any 30-day period. Medical and psychological screenings will be administered to personnel assigned to this function on a weekly basis. Description: SCP-3084 is a silent film titled 7 Strangers at a Feast. The majority of the film appears to have been made at some point in the late 1920s, however, certain elements suggest that parts of the film may have been made earlier or later than this time period. SCP-3084 has a total runtime of 2 hours, and 17 minutes. Apart from an initial title placard, SCP-3084 does not feature any title cards to indicate dialogue nor any indication that a musical score of any kind was intended. No records of the film's purported director, Jacob Nkurunziza, have been verified to exist. In approximately 40% of documented cases, persons viewing SCP-3084 in its entirety become capable of accessing a transphysical space designated Plane 3084 upon completion of their first viewing of the film. Within 3 to 5 days after the initial viewing, these subjects will develop an intuitive ability to enter a trance-like state at will and appear to vanish from observation upon achieving this state. During this time, subjects are transported through unknown means to Plane 3084. Persons entering Plane 3084 in this manner are able to return to baseline reality at will and reappear in the same location in space upon returning. Research indicates that at least 6 persons have entered Plane 3084 since its creation, including 2 Foundation personnel. Plane 3084 is believed to have been created through anomalous means at the same time as SCP-3084. Plane 3084 is a transphysical space closely resembling locations depicted in Seven Strangers at a Feast. Geographical features, structures, and ambient weather conditions all appear to exactly match locations that appear in the film. It is not believed that SCP-3084 was filmed within Plane 3084. Rather, Plane 3084 is understood to be a place generated concurrently with the act of filming SCP-3084. SCP-3084 was first documented among the effects of George Cecil Jones, Person of Interest 3663, collected posthumously as part of the larger monitoring efforts of Operation Lawbreaker in the 1960s, where its anomalous traits were observed upon processing the numerous artifacts in the Jones estate. Jones and other figures targeted in the course of Lawbreaker are not believed to be the intended recipients of SCP-3084 copies. At least 30 copies of SCP-3084 are known to have been distributed anonymously in the 1920s in London, Paris, Brussels, Rome, and several other European cities. Most have been recovered from individuals occupying high-profile positions in business, the military, or the aristocracy, who are believed to be the intended recipients of SCP-3084 at the time. Addendum 3084-1. Synopsis of SCP-3084. Seven Strangers at a Feast is an experimental film deviating in style and subject material from most efforts of the late silent film era. These differences include the extended running time, lack of an easily discernible story or plot, depictions of graphic violence utilizing special effects far in advance of those available at the time, and repeated use of abstract imagery. No actors in the film have yet been positively identified, indicating that SCP-3084 is an amateur production. Character names in the description below have been assigned by research staff, as no credits beyond the initial title card are present in SCP-3084. Scenes 1 to 8. These scenes take place in and around an isolated country house and include several establishing shots. 5 characters are introduced as they arrive at the country house, all depicted walking along a dirt road leading to the location. The young man, the young woman, the aristocrat, the general, and the boy. All of the characters gather at the front door of the country house. The aristocrat and the general argue heatedly, apparently about whether to enter the house or concerning a possible plan of action once inside the house. The young man, young woman, and boy are silent throughout the exchange, with the expressions of worry or fear throughout most scenes. Scenes 9 to 13. The old woman appears for the first time, aimlessly wandering in the interior of the country house. The scenes are dimly lit. While her face is obscured throughout the film, the old woman can be interpreted to be muttering to herself by her hand and head movements and occasionally yelling in the empty house. The old woman pauses occasionally to look with apparent apprehension at a chest next to the unlit hearth in the middle of the house. Scenes 14 to 27. The argument between the aristocrat and the general suddenly stops. The 2 men stand silently at the door to the house while the general beckons the boy to join them. The boy resists and attempts to hide behind the young man. The young man appears confused and attempts to prevent the boy from coming near him. The young woman suddenly flees the scene and runs into the woods surrounding the house. Scenes 28 to 30. Inside the country house, the old woman shuffles closer to the front door, appearing to dance in an erratic fashion until reaching the door, at which point she appears to start shaking uncontrollably while stretching her arms skyward. Scenes 31 to 43. The young woman runs through the now darkened woods surrounding the country house. The film quality appears to deteriorate and change during this extended sequence. The lighting of the scene grows darker and darker as the young woman continues to flee, her apparent terror increasing steadily. The woods are barely discernible by scene 38, and the young woman begins to be beset by shapeless apparitions emerging from the darkness starting in scene 41. By scene 43, the woman is almost entirely out of focus, only recognizable by frantic, exaggerated movements. Scenes 44 to 51. The aristocrat kicks down the front door of the country house, finding the old woman standing in the doorway. He roughly takes hold of the woman and marches her inside. The general draws his pistol and motions for the boy to go inside the house. The boy refuses until the general discharges a round into the air. The boy reluctantly goes inside the house. The general apparently tells the young man to stand by a window looking into the house and then goes inside himself. Scenes 52 to 59. This portion of the film is entirely focused on the young man who stays in place, watching the action through the window the entire time. Multiple camera angles apparently utilizing several varieties of film, some appearing to be of higher quality than should be available for the time, are utilized. The young man grows increasingly uncomfortable and disturbed by what he is witnessing, presumably the events depicted in scene 60 of the film, but does not move from his spot by the window. Scene 60. The longest individual scene in the film. The old woman is forced down onto a long table in front of the hearth by the aristocrat and the general. Her clothing, apart from the hood which continues to obscure her face, is torn away, and the two men methodically fix the old woman into place by driving long nails through her wrists and ankles into the table. The boy is then made to sit and observe by the general. The aristocrat and the general use long thin knives to flay the old woman's legs, placing the skin on top of the chest next to the hearth. The skin appears to begin smoldering. The aristocrat then opens a long incision in the old woman's torso. Together, the aristocrat and the general remove several ribs, carefully cutting away tissue until the cleansed bones are placed on top of the chest as well. The bones float in place over the pile of skin, which is now apparently on fire. The general dips a vessel into the old woman's now open abdominal cavity and pours several cupfuls of blood.
I apologize for this one being very graphic. I may have to censor this one a little bit in post. I think this is one of the most graphic ones he's described.
Blood on top of the chest, causing the flames to grow substantially. The boy, watching impassively to this point, gets up from his seat at the request of the aristocrat. The boy reaches into the incision of the old woman's torso and retrieves what appears to be a set of eyes. The eyes rise out of the boy's palm and travel first over the aristocrat, then the general, before descending into the pyre atop the chest. The fire stops and the chest opens. The guest, a charred skeletal figure, rises from inside the chest. The boy, the aristocrat, and the general arrange 6 chairs around the table upon which the old woman is still fastened, and apparently still alive. The aristocrat beckons to the window from which the young man is still watching, motioning for him to come inside. The guest assumes a position at the head of the table. Scenes 61 to 63. The young woman continues to run frantically in darkness, finally coming up on an isolated doorway deep into the woods. As these shapeless apparitions continue to pursue, the young woman opens the door and hurries inside, closing it behind her. Scenes 64 to 68. The young woman appears spontaneously inside the country house, as the chairs have been arranged around the table and the old woman. She makes no reaction as the aristocrat, the general, and the young man drape the scraps of the old woman's clothes onto her, and the boy seats her at the foot of the table opposite the guest. The rest of the characters take their seats around the table. The guest begins clawing at the flesh of the old woman with his hands, taking portions from her limbs. The flesh appears to cook while in the guest's hands, The guest hands portions of flesh to each character in turn around the table, each of whom devours the offering quickly. This is repeated several times. Scenes 69 to 74. Scene 69 suddenly cuts to a clean skeleton affixed to the table. The characters still seated around the table, save the guest, who is absent. The aristocrat, the general, and the young man stand up and leave the house. The boy removes the hood, still present on the skull of the old woman, and drapes it over the unresponsive young woman, still seated at the opposite end of the table. Scene 74 consists of a continuous shot of the now obscured face of the young woman, lasting 2 minutes and 19 seconds before the film abruptly ends. Addendum 3084-2. Research Notes, Volume 1. Initial documentation of SCP-3084 and subsequent exploration of Plane 3084 was undertaken in 1963 by researcher Philip Dumont. The following are relevant field notes containing observations and data collected by Dr. Dumont during his assignment to SCP-3084. Prevailing features of Plane 3084, 12th of March, 1963. Area consists of observable terrain and traversable terrain. Observable terrain is the same as depicted in the film, which must have been shot on location. Traversable terrain is the area around the house itself, and a small corridor leading into the surrounding forest. Attempts to cross into non-traversable terrain are met with a simple inability to proceed further. No feeling of a barrier, no visible indicators, you just can't go there. Original location is confirmed to be Rusizi National Park in the Kingdom of Burundi. This place is a simulacrum. Ongoing political instability is stalling inquiries, but unusual that a largely white production team making a film here would not be remarked in any records at the time. No records of Jacob Nkurunziza came up in our background search, and local authorities seemed quite insistent that they know of no such person. No persons, or in fact any detectable living organisms present. Field microscopic examination of soil and water samples turn up same. Time does not pass in the surrounding area. The sun stays low in the sky and the local time is always 1830 hours, give or take a few minutes. Time passes normally for myself and my pocket watch. House interior assessment, 5th of May, 1963. The country house at the center of Plane 3084 does not decay, but instead maintains a certain shabby quality as originally depicted in the film. No amount of force seems to be sufficient to open the chest by the hearth. Tools are being requisitioned for the next visit. Unsurprisingly, one cannot light a fire in the hearth. The testimony of Duke McKellen, who is known to have visited this place sometime in the 30s, indicates that when the humanoids corresponding to the characters of the film dwelt here, they would mostly congregate in the house when they weren't reenacting scenes. Two other individuals suspected to have been visitors indirectly confirmed this observation in documents lifted from their private records, but only McKellen described the routine of the characters in any detail. It is unfortunate that he only visited once. Whether this experience is at all tied to his supposed nervous disposition in later years is impossible to say. Before these humanoids, I hesitate to call them fully human until we can find one and examine it, left this plane for parts unknown, they were known to spend hours at a stretch all assembled in the house, standing almost perfectly still, only their eyes moving to follow visitors. Unsurprising perhaps that McKellen did not return for a second trip. As of this time, however, no persons are to be found here. Excavation results, 17th of August, 1963. The work has been going slowly. Normally, we would have 7 or 8 men digging this place up with suitable equipment. Due to our mostly reasonable protocols for visiting places like these, it's just been me and my shovel. Following some study of scenes 65 and 66, and my observations here, I've succeeded in prying up the floorboards underneath the dinner table and excavating about 1 meter of material. I'll be able to test what I've done once site staff have finished designing the equipment for this environment. Recovered the following: approximately 35 cubic centimeters of fabric, likely linen, various implements of cutlery, likely steel, layers of charred wood and ash, suggesting rebuilding of present structure on site of previously destroyed one, 10 cups of similar design to those depicted in scene 60 of the film, and scattered skeletal remains, almost certainly human. Initial examination suggests at least 5 different individuals, including 2 skulls. Unlabeled, 29th of July, 1963. All of the bones apparently belong to the same person. Not the first time we've encountered this situation, but never a welcome development. Forest Examination 7, 12th of September, 1963. I've been feeling along the boundaries of the forest corridor for quite some time. On this examination, I have found a narrow pathway partway into the corridor that appears to correspond to scenes 31 to 43. This is a unique portion of the film in that it could have been filmed anywhere and does not necessarily represent a fixed location in this plane. This could theoretically account for the whereabouts of the film's characters, who have not been present in this plane since at the very least 1954. Likely that I will be undertaking further explorations of this new side corridor in 50-meter increments during my next scheduled visits. Unlabeled, 23rd of September, 1963. I haven't taken a sound recorder since the first few visits. I must remember to bring one next time. Unlabeled, 28th of September, 1963. It gets darker here. Something about this specific place in the forest is most certainly different. The tapes don't seem to play anything back, but I'm increasingly certain that there is some form of life in the woods. Dr. Dumont's field notes conclude at the 28th of September 1963 entry. Dr. Dumont did not return as scheduled from his 28th of September 1963 visit to plane 3084 and was officially listed missing in action until the 28th of September 1968, when he was recovered in a significantly agitated state from a police station in Lyons, France, after attempting to clandestinely contact Foundation assets in the area. Dr. Dumont was unable to recall his whereabouts for the previous 5-year period in debriefings and was granted a medical retirement several months later. Addendum 3084-3, Update and Analysis. At the request of Assistant Researcher Rania Kassar, SCP-3084 was reauthorized for examination on the 12th of October 2016 as part of a training and development assignment. Assistant Researcher Kassar was granted security clearance for Plane 3084 as part of a comprehensive data review and entry revision procedure and has filed the following addendum. Review Focus 1. Known visitors to Plane 3084. Dorian Giroux, 5th Duke of McKellen. McKellen is known from his personal testimony to an undercover Foundation operative in the 1960s to have received a copy of SCP-3084 and viewed it. The then Duke of McKellen was at one time a prominent member of the Belgian royal family. However, he grew estranged from them in the 1930s. This is concurrent with the time period of his first and only visit to Plane 3084, which he described as a disturbing and unpleasant experience. At the time of his visit, Plane 3084 was populated by simulacra of the characters depicted in Seven Strangers at a Feast. These characters would reenact the events of the film on a fixed cycle of time, completing a performance and then retiring to the country house for a period of several hours before repeating. McKellen apparently witnessed 2 full performances from a fixed perspective inside the country house, noting that the characters would interact with him if engaged during portions of the film's narrative that were set outside of the house. In the account of McKellen, these characters would not speak, but would engage non-verbally. He notes being warmly greeted by the aristocrat and the general, and regarded with fear by the young man. On several occasions, the aristocrat appeared to instruct the boy to stay in McKellen's vicinity, which McKellen discouraged. When pressed, McKellen claimed to not remember any interactions with the guest. Herman von Dietrich. Von Dietrich was primarily known as a substantial owner of Ruhrkohle AG, a large German mining company, and personally oversaw operations at the Delacroix Gold Complex in what is now the Central African Republic. Von Dietrich was also a major investor in film studio Babelsberg, a significant organization in early German cinema. In a letter to Erich Palmer, an influential German film producer, Von Dietrich recounts what he describes as a dream following his viewing of a film delivered to his offices in Frankfurt. The contents of this dream are believed to be an account of a visit to plane 3084. Von Dietrich describes a different set of interactions than McKellen. Von Dietrich recounts a landscape exactly as that of the peculiar film screened in my private theater the night prior, where all of the characters of Seven Strangers at a Feast are arrayed inside the house, similar to scene 67 of the film. The guest is said to have addressed him directly, speaking in a loud, deep voice, repeatedly stating, "Peter, kill and eat," while directing Von Dietrich to partake of the titular feast. Despite expressing a desire to leave this scene in his recounting of the event, Von Dietrich describes being handed a gilded plate and sitting down at the table, and then eating several handfuls of flesh handed to him by the guest. His description of the event follows. "Each morsel that I ate was delectable, as though I had been famished and finally set to a meal after a long day's ride out of the jungle. And yet, my gut recoiled at the foul knowledge of what I was eating. I could feel each individual bite swirling in my stomach, wishing to heave up the contents then and there on the table, even as I licked the grease from my lips and held out my plate for more." Von Dietrich describes similar scenes to this one as a recurring dream in subsequent correspondence. Records of Hermann von Dietrich become much more sparse following his divestment from Rurikol AG in 1932, and he is believed to have perished in the opening years of World War II. Archibald Raine and Amelia Homewood. Archibald Raine, a director of the London-based Shaw Brothers Export Bank, is confirmed via postal receipts of the time to have received a copy of Seven Strangers at a Feast. Unlike other known recipients, Raine is believed to have been fascinated and intrigued by the film, watching it repeatedly and analyzing its contents in his private journal. In his repeated visits to plane 3084, he describes experiences similar to those encountered by Duke McKellen. In 1947, Raine showed the film to Amelia Homewood, a fringe figure in the London spiritualism community earlier in the century, known primarily for her work in automatic photography. Homewood began accompanying Raine on visits to plane 3084, and the pair studied the film and its associated phenomenon intensely. Eventually, both persons came to the conclusion that the film's primary theme was liberation, and that plane 3084 represented a realm analogous to Christian concepts of purgatory. Raine's journal entries become increasingly abstruse after reaching this conclusion, crouched heavily in terminology and concepts apparently borrowed from Liber al Vel Legis and other works associated with the Thelema movement. References to reversing the course appear frequently, and accounts of subsequent visits to plane 3084 suggest that several characters of Seven Strangers at a Feast are now absent from the plane. Both Raine and Homewood appear to have disappeared sometime after February of 1950, with Raine being declared legally dead in 1958 after a lengthy inquest into the disposition of his estate. Review Focus 2, Jacob Unkrunziza. At the conclusion of this review, no official records of Jacob Unkrunziza have been confirmed to exist. Based on thematic and stylistic examinations of several other works of anomalous art from the period, however, Unkrunziza is believed to have been associated with other documented SCPs: The Clouds Burn Down, Anomalous Visual Phenomenon 1923, 6.6- Unexplained Telegraph Signal 1924, and The Final Parliament, Manufactured Mass Delusional Episode, Madrid 1930. References to Black Jakob appear in correspondence between groups known to be associated with anomalous art in Western Europe between 1919 and 1928. These are suspected to refer to Jacob Unkrunziza. Cultural analysis of these artworks suggests that Jacob Unkrunziza was born and spent significant amounts of time in the Kingdom of Burundi. At some point in his life, Nkurunziza likely received a European-style university education. The extent to which his work appears to have been recognized in the larger artistic community consists primarily of negative reactions to several of his pieces in the Dadaist movement. Historical analysis of artistic subcultures and associated works have identified possible appearances by Nkurunziza in 1942, 1957, 1979, 1988 to 89, and 2014. Despite the apparent anachronism of these occurrences, Jacob Nkurunziza cannot be declared inactive at this time. Review Focus 3. Recent photographic records. British field exercises, Kenya 1960. Leftmost figure, 94% biometric match for entity 3084-2, the general. Only known photo. Recovered during automated search algorithm, 10th of October, 2017. Provisionally quarantined remote site, 3084A, 2017. House closely matching that depicted in SCP-3084 spontaneously appears in Anuis Province, France. Forensic examination pending. Photo courtesy of Site-28 research staff. This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
Well, that one was pretty disturbing. And I mean, really disturbing compared to the first three.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-2875. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. A perimeter is to be established 2 kilometers from the center of Wisconsin, and no non-Foundation personnel are to pass this limit. Mobile Task Force Lambda 2, Chain Gang, is to oversee containment of SCP-2875. Updated containment procedures. Due to recent findings, only Mobile Task Force Lambda 2 approved equipment is considered acceptable to dispatch SCP-2875-A instances. Under no circumstances are any personnel to attempt to dispatch an instance of SCP-2875-A with a firearm, incendiary device, or other unauthorized implement. Description: SCP-2875 is a phenomenon occurring only in the town of Wisconsin. At noon, every 3 days, between 50 to 100 fully grown adult Ursus arctos horribilis, mainland grizzly bear, will appear throughout the town. These instances are not anomalously strong or fast, or anomalously hostile, and will generally act like any other members of their species given the situation. The phenomenon appears to be cumulative. The instances, SCP-2875-A, will linger around the town center for a short time before dispersing, and more instances will appear 3 days later. Due to the potential scaling issues of the bear population growth, it has become imperative to dispatch the new instances as quickly as possible. Currently, the only feasible means to dispatch SCP-2875-A instances is by using a highly concentrated aerosol tranquilizer spray, and then a blunt instrument with which to cause trauma to the cranial region, as killing any of the instances using a firearm or incendiary device results in 2 new instances appearing next to the corpse of the deceased instance. As such, only Foundation's standard motorized blunt force devices have been permitted for use against the instances, with other blunt or bladed weapons being permitted per Mobile Task Force Leader instruction. Discovery: SCP-2875 was discovered by Foundation containment teams sent to investigate reports about the sudden disappearance of an entire town of people. Upon arriving at the situation quickly became apparent when the town was observed as being flooded with SCP-2875-A instances. Initially, the containment teams had prepared to move all of the instances to other habitats outside of, but when the reoccurring nature of SCP-2875 was discovered, the current containment procedures were established. Mobile Task Force Lead, note: I know plenty of you think that this is some kind of joke, but a town of constantly appearing bears is serious. Can you imagine what would happen to the local ecosystem if we let this thing go? It was like a goddamn bear arena when we first rolled in, and that was only after a few days. Addendum 2875-1. Collected voicemails. The following voicemails were recovered from a mobile device found in a cave outside. The owner of the device has not yet been verified. 2875 1.1.
Oh, hey, this is Tom Miller from City Hall, and I just wanted to get in touch with you about some things you were saying the other day at the old town meeting, so give me a call back here before too long. My number is 875-7112, and I'll talk to you then. Thanks a lot. Bye.
2875, 1.2.
Oh, hey, it's Tom Miller again from City Hall. I just wanted to get back in touch with you about some things we talked about the other day. I've been thinking about what you were saying about the pest problem with the coyotes, and I really do think bears is the way we want to go, so let me know when we can talk about that, get some plans laid out. You know my number is 875-7112. We'll talk more then. Thanks a lot. Bye.
2875, 1.3.
Hey, it's Tom Miller again. Just wanted to let you know, Bears is going great. We haven't seen any coyotes around in a while, so that's good. I do have one question, though, about one of the bears getting a little close to town. One of the gals in town is a little freaked about it, so we can talk about that and get some of these details ironed out. I think this is going to be great. Okay, thanks a lot. Oh yeah, the number is 875-7112, and we'll talk then. Thanks a lot. Bye.
2875, 1.4.
Hey there, it's Tom Miller again. Haven't heard from you in a while. I just wanted to let you know, me and some of the guys are a little concerned that there might be too many bears. Most of the coyotes have moved on from town, so it's probably about time the bears got out of here. So we gotta do that pretty soon. It's becoming a little bit of a problem, so give me a call. The number is 875-7112. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye.
2875, 1.5.
Okay, listen, there are too many bears in town now. A little boy got attacked just the other day in the street. He was with his mom. He got attacked by one of the bears, okay? There are too many bears now. I need you to call me, please, as soon as you can so we can do something about this. Okay? Thanks. Oh, wait. 875-7112. Okay? Call me soon. Thanks. Bye.
2875, 1.6.
Okay, listen. There's a bear outside of my house, okay? My neighbor just got eaten by a bear. Okay? There are bears in the streets. There are bears in people's homes. Okay? We gotta do something about this. I can't get outside. Okay? My kids are at school. I can't get to my kids. Okay, there's a bear on my car. Oh, God. Oh, Lord, there's a bear in my house. Oh, 875-7112. Call me, please.
This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
Damn.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-4255. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Due to the widespread knowledge of the base anomalous properties of SCP-4255, it has been given the secondary classification of a cracked veil uncontained anomaly. In order to suppress further information of SCP-4255, Procedure Euclid has been created. Procedure Euclid occurs as follows. Annually on 12 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time, November 22nd, memetic agents are to be implemented into all forms of media, including television programs, new works of literature, Foundation front accounts on social media websites, and various forms of performing and visual arts. These memetic agents are designed to implant false memories into parents or guardians of any children who celebrate the holiday Christmas. These memories include the purchasing of gifts that will be given to their children by SCP-4255 on December 25th, and the placing of said gifts on that night by SCP-4255. Any individuals which have been unaffected by the memetic treatment described above are to be located and manually treated. Starting on 8 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time, December 24th, 2 unarmed military aircrafts are to locate, track, and follow all temporal versions of SCP-4255 and make note of any noticeable changes in behavior from SCP-4255. Lethal force is not permitted when interacting with SCP-4255. When all versions of SCP-4255 have vanished, all Foundation interference is to cease. After 12 a.m. Coordinated Universal Time, December 25th, social media is to be tracked for any images of or accounts with SCP-4255, and images or conspiracy theories centered around Procedure Euclid. Any offending pieces of information are to be labeled as hoax or erased, with the publishers being located and treated to Class A amnestics. In extreme cases, all viewers of information described above are to be treated with Class A amnestics, with all social media being cleansed of any information on SCP-4255 or Procedure Euclid that these cases could spawn. Efforts to partake in a secondary interview with SCP-4255 are to be attempted, as SCP-4255 seems to possess valuable information on controllable temporal anomalies and on the historical future of the human race. Description: SCP-4255 is a humanoid male with an aged appearance, approximately 1.4 meters in height and 150 kilograms in weight. SCP-4255 appears to be in his 60s or 70s. However, reports of SCP-4255 manifestations have dated back to 400 AD. SCP-4255 possesses a similar appearance to the traditional attire of the character Santa Claus. No current connection between SCP-4255 and the Bishop St. Nicholas have been made, along with the red and gold ornate sleigh that his character is known to be present in, designated SCP-4255-1. SCP-4255-1 is capable of flight via unknown means, and is able to travel at speeds of approximately 100 km per hour, with SCP-4255 remaining inside SCP-4255-1 during flight, even when scientifically impossible. SCP-4255-1 is drawn by 8 cervid animals resembling Rangifer tarandus, also known by the names caribou or reindeer, although infrared scans show that these do not possess any heat signatures, and it is currently unknown if these are living organisms. SCP-4255 manifestations periodically occur at 8 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time, December 24th each year, during which SCP-4255 will appear somewhere approximately 1 kilometer in the air above the Earth's surface in SCP-4255-1. SCP-4255 and/or SCP-4255-1 appear to possess the ability to generate small-scale temporal anomalies. During its appearances, as many as 294 versions of SCP-4255 are present on across the globe at once, with many versions processing visual differences that have not yet occurred to SCP-4255 from a linear standpoint. SCP-4255 manifestations always follow a similar pattern of events after its initial appearance. SCP-4255 will land on the roof or near a household of individuals that celebrate the holiday Christmas, regardless of religious background, and will use its temporal abilities to enter the household. SCP-4255 will then produce a multitude of wrapped gifts and toys, with number of gifts given varying from child to child. It is also of note that SCP-4255 has a significant understanding of the likes and dislikes of each child on Earth, with presents given having an 82.56% accuracy rate compared to what the children would like to have received for a gift at that time. All recorded gifts have been non-anomalous, with SCP-4255 actively avoiding the giving of gifts a child wants if it could be classified as anomalous. SCP-4255 will repeat this pattern until all children who celebrate Christmas on the planet have received at least one gift from it. Attempts to approach SCP-4255 or SCP-4255-1 in an effort to capture either anomaly on the ground or in the sky have resulted in failure, with SCP-4255 using its temporal abilities to evade capture. Addendum 4255-1. Before an SCP-4255 manifestation on the year 2018, several houses of Foundation personnel were equipped with audio transmission devices, which was then used to make an official direct contact with SCP-4255 for the first time on record. Log 4255-1. Interviewed, SCP-4255. Interviewer, Researcher Mayor. Begin log.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Who is this?
This is researcher Charles Mayer. I come from an organization
The SCP Foundation? They told me I'd run into you guys today. Aren't you the people always trailing in those jets? Those things are out up close, you know.
The SCP Foundation, yes. Who do you mean by they?
Well, it's probably gonna mess up time and cause some butterfly effect shit, but they told me to tell you guys this for some reason. Well, they're called the U.S. Department of Chronology. Pretty stupid name if you ask me. Chronology sounds like the most sci-fi thing ever. What year is it right now? I want to make sure I don't say anything too major.
2018.
Oh, God. Well, they said there's some government branch that keeps check over time travel and stuff, and, well, they sort of forced me to do this. I'd like to go find stuff from the past and, well, take it. I had one of Hitler's paintings before, a block from those pyramids that were in Africa. You know, stuff like that.
I'm afraid I don't quite follow. What does this have to do with you being... well, being...
I'm getting to that. Just give me a sec. So one day, some government cronies came and took me away. Thought I was being careful, I did, but I guess not careful enough. Probably have some way to detect time travel. Anyway, they told me I had to do this. Looked like I got off easy, but this got boring after a while. Been doing this for like 2.5 years. One Christmas every day.
I see. So, do you have a real name, then?
Stan Klein. I haven't been born yet. That's always a weird thing to say. You probably know me as Santa Claus or something like that. You tell a kid your name in the 5th century and the half-deaf little shit tells everyone your name is Santa Claus. I hope some crazy government shoots me out of the sky so I can get this hell over with.
If you're a time traveler, then when are you from?
2099.
Huh. Well then, how do you have such a good understanding of each child's wants for the holiday? Is this some sort of future technology?
Not sure I can tell you that. I've caused enough paradoxes with this one interview already. Wait a second. Are you guys gonna put this in a document or something?
Yes, this will be logged in...
Shit! That's how they knew. They read this damn log!
Excuse me?
I ain't saying anything else.
SCP-4255 uses a temporal anomaly to vacate the area in SCP-4255-1. End log. Closing statement. SCP-4255 refused all efforts to cooperate with questioning after the events of this interview, and instead yelled obscenities at interviewers when attempts to question were made. No records of a Stan Klein matching SCP-4255's description have been found. Addendum 4255-2. On September 4th, 2097, the Foundation Department of Chronology was formed after the discovery of replicatable, controllable travel non-linearly through time was discovered. After parallels between SCP-4255's described host organization and the newly formed department were made, Stan Klein, a man matching the physical description of SCP-4225, was tracked and placed into Foundation custody. It was later found that Klein had access to a temporal anomaly, allowing him to travel through time non-linearly. To avoid a possible CK-class reality configuration scenario or a PT-class paradoxical time breakdown scenario, the Foundation is to give Klein the full capabilities to perform the actions of SCP-4255, along with the recorded appearance of SCP-4255, a large sleigh built to the specifications of SCP-4255-1 was created using several anomalies, making it capable of controllable flight, along with the sleigh and Klein being equipped with devices designed to create small-scale temporal anomalies. 8 heat-resistant models resembling the now extinct Rangifer Tyrannus were attached to the front of the sleigh in a manner that suggests that they are pulling the craft behind them. Gifts given are to be produced by the Beta Temporal Knowledge Artificial Intelligence Unit, commonly abbreviated as BTK AI, an AI created by the Foundation that uses time anomalies to know all information across linear timeframes. While the BTK AI unit currently only knows information up to an undisclosed year in the 21st century, this year is expected to change at a rate that will be constant enough for Klain to fulfill his duties. All other information to the BTK AI unit is classified. It is currently unknown when Klain will finish his duties as SCP-4255. Klain will finish his role as SCP-4255 on Christmas Day on an undisclosed year within the 22nd century. This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening. If indeed you still are, happy holidays or whatever you celebrate, and you're all dismissed. Goodbye.
Note. File under
This will
review.
probably be the last
This
one.
document has been flagged for possible methodological issues. Please be aware that the following information is subject to change and may contain
For today.
inaccuracies.
Item number SCP-5031. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-5031 is to be contained in an airtight iron cell in Biosite 59. The structure must be inspected for imperfections on a bi-weekly basis. No other interaction necessary. Description: SCP-5031 is a non-sapient quasi-humanoid creature of unknown origin. When directly observed, SCP-5031 will temporarily cease to exist until the viewer stops observing the space that SCP-5031 formerly occupied. Traces of its existence, for example scratch marks or blood trails, continue to exist when SCP-5031 does not. Video and photography devices do not capture SCP-5031's appearance. However, observing SCP-5031's shadow does not cause cessation of existence, allowing certain physiological traits to be inferred from its silhouette. Abnormally small head with no discernible neck. Elbows branch into 3 sets of lower arms each. Elongated torso approximately 1.9 meters in length, presumably for extra digestive capacity. Pelvis terminates in a crescent-shaped protrusion of osseous tissue with a blade-like lower edge. Levitates above the ground at a fixed height of 0.5 meters. While SCP-5031 has no nutritional needs, it will nevertheless hunt and consume any human or animal it encounters by using its pendulous lower body to down targets. SCP-5031 does not sleep and is incapable of expression or verbal communication. Addendum: as of 14/02/2018, Senior Researcher Stanley Huxtable is now acting in the role of HCL Supervisor for SCP-5031. The following is a selection of relevant correspondences from Senior Researcher Huxtable to Site Director Yusuf Mustofi elucidating research progress. 14/02/2018. Initial impressions. I have no idea who wrote this, but there's a lot I'd like to say to them. I'm not a fan of abandoning a living creature inside a metal box for 10 years, no matter how pragmatic it may be. It's difficult to fathom that such things were considered the norm a decade ago. Have you ever heard something scream from behind 10 inches of iron for hours on end? When I do my redraft, remind me to add anomalous resistance to hoarseness somewhere in the description. Could you work your magic and get the boys to retrofit the containment cube with an aperture and security vestibule? I'd like to run some tests that require exposing SCP-5031 to certain stimuli. 08/03/2018. Round 1 tests. Sound. Summary. Forward. Installed speakers in the containment vestibule and played various albums of natural ambience and popular music. SCP-5031's propensity for screaming worked as a convenient way to measure its stress levels. 100% would be considered its typical screaming. Volume and duration, over 48 hours, and 0% would be no screaming at all. Selection: Morning Forest Ambience. Stress level: 43%. Seaside Paradise Ambience: 48%. Deep Grotto Ambience: 62%. The best of Mozart, 13%. The best of Enya, 18%. The best of Ben Folds, 6%. The best of Jethro Tull, 59%. The best of Kiss, 23%. Afterward. Efficacy of music for stress reduction gradually decreases over time. I've assembled a playlist of SCP-5031's favorite music to play on shuffle in its enclosure in perpetuity. Stress levels consistently remain in the 15 to 25% range, baseline adjusted accordingly. 2203-2018.
That's pretty
Round
impressive
2
right
tests.
there.
Play. Summary. Test. Threw softball into enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 sliced the ball in two. Test. Tossed basketball into enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 sliced the ball open. Test. Rolled bowling ball into enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 scratched a couple of grooves into the ball, then rolled the ball around the enclosure with the blunt end of its tail for 20 minutes. Stress levels remained less than 60% after play. Test. Rolled another bowling ball into the enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 used the blunt end of its tail to hit the balls together for a while. Stress levels remained less than 40% after play. Test. Bowling ball chipped and would no longer roll properly. Unplanned. Result. Stress levels increased to around 115%. Test. Replacement bowling ball provided. Result. Stress levels fell back to around 40%. Test. Tossed basketball into enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 picked up and played with the ball. Stress levels remained less than 20% after play. Afterward. SCP-5031 began to use its hands to play with the basketball, possibly to avoid accidentally damaging it. Motor skill comparable to that of a toddler. SCP-5031 still prefers bowling ball for kicking. 0504-2018. Round 3 tests. Food. Summary. Forward. SCP-5031 was given the choice between two potential food sources placed at opposite ends of the enclosure. Choices: human corpse or pig carcass. Selection: pig carcass. Choices: pig carcass or chicken carcass. Selection: pig carcass. Choices: pig carcass or rotisserie chicken. Selection: rotisserie chicken. Choices: chicken carcass or rotisserie chicken. Selection: rotisserie chicken. Choices: live chicken or rotisserie chicken. Selection: rotisserie chicken. Choices: roasted turkey or rotisserie chicken. Selection: neither, presumed sated. Afterward. While it's true that SCP-5031 doesn't necessarily need to eat, feeding it regularly has caused a marked decrease in average stress levels. Stress reduction seems to scale proportionally with the quality of food provided. Also of note is that SCP-5031 prefers to use its tail to pry and cut meat into bite-sized portions rather than rip the meat into chunks with its teeth or hands. 1204-2018. Round 4 tests. Coexistence. Summary. Test 1. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, common chicken, introduced to enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 observed subject from a distance for several minutes and then rolled a bowling ball towards subject
I did not
at
know
high
that the
speed.
track ended.
Subject was killed instantly. SCP-5031's stress levels rose immediately and drastically. Test 2. Bowling balls removed from enclosure. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, common chicken, introduced to enclosure. Result. SCP-5031 gently rolled a basketball towards subject. Ball hit subject lightly. Subject responded with a small cry and moved away. SCP-5031 did not engage with subject any further. Test 3. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, Class D, blindfolded, introduced to the enclosure and instructed to sit and roll basketball forward. Then wait until it came back and roll away again. Result. Subject and SCP-5031 successfully rolled the ball back and forth for several minutes. SCP-5031 eventually abandoned the activity and approached the subject. Per safety protocol, subject removed their blindfold to terminate the activity. Test 4. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, Class D, introduced to the enclosure and instructed to toss a tennis ball at the wall. Let it ricochet behind them, then catch and repeat. Result: SCP-5031 stood behind subject and successfully engaged in a game of catch, mimicking subject's action of letting ball ricochet against the wall. Afterward, SCP-5031's motor skills appear to be rapidly improving. 1605-2018 Round 5 Tests. Symbols. Summary. Forward. 5 LCD displays were fitted into the wall of SCP-5031's enclosure, each with a lit button and a food dispenser underneath. Test 1. 2 stations activated. Screen 1 displayed the image of a rock. Its button dispensed rocks. Screen 2 displayed the image of a rotisserie chicken. Its button dispensed pieces of chicken. Result: SCP-5031 poked at the image of the chicken for a few minutes and eventually hit the button. Chicken was dispensed until SCP-5031 was satisfied. Test 2. Screen displays and the materials dispensed were swapped. Result: SCP-5031 hit the button it had hit the previous day and received a rock. It then went to the other screen and hit the button to dispense chicken. Test 3. Screen displays and materials dispensed were swapped back to their original positions and set to swap again at random intervals after the first distribution. Result: SCP-5031 went directly to the button next to the image of the chicken, experienced apparent confusion after the first mid-distribution swap, but quickly learned to watch the images. Test 4. 3 more stations, screens, buttons, dispensers were activated. 4 stations displayed the word rock and dispensed rocks. 1 station displayed the word chicken and dispensed chicken. Arrangements set to change randomly several times over the following days. Result: through trial and error, SCP-5031 determined which station dispensed chicken. SCP-5031 subsequently went to the station marked chicken whenever the displays were swapped. Test 5. All stations deactivated except 1. Screen displayed the word chicken. 7 wood blocks were set in front of the station, each marked with one of the letters in the word chicken. The station's button was set to remain unlit and inactive until the blocks were arranged in the correct order. Result: SCP-5031 expressed apparent frustration, hitting the inactive button repeatedly and striking the wall with its tail. Test 6. Same as previous test, but screen displayed the word chicken with each letter overlaid on a photo of a wood block. Result: after 12 minutes, SCP-5031 successfully assembled the word chicken. Afterward, it can learn language, Yusuf. 29/08/2018 Round 6 Tests. Vocabulary. Results. Forward, SCP-5031 has learned to use letter blocks to form the following words: foods: chicken, turkey, pork, tofu, beef, bread, more salt, more pepper, more cooked. Music: Mozart, Enya, Ben Folds, Forest, Seaside, White Noise, more volume, less volume, and silence. Play: basketball, bowling ball, tennis ball, cat, dog, human, Robert, D52125, Stanley, and alone. Afterward, through its increased vocabulary and human interaction, SCP-5031 has made the following progress: established food preferences and dish pairings, learned to sing non-verbally, and learned to juggle. Six-handed juggling is something to behold. 05/10/2018 Round 7 Tests. Activities. Summary. Test 1. Introduced table, paper, and crayons into the enclosure. Live subject D52125 instructed to demonstrate drawing for SCP-5031. Result: SCP-5031 learned to draw. Discernible subjects depicted in its artwork include D52125, SCP-5031, a rotisserie chicken, a cat, and myself. Test 2. Introduced piano to the enclosure. Live subject, D52125, instructed to play chopsticks blindfolded and invite SCP-5031 to play along. Subject had time to practice beforehand. Result: SCP-5031 learned chopsticks in 2 days, though it appeared more interested in making its own original music complete with vocals. These compositions might be considered crude by human standards. Test 3. Introduced spice rack into the enclosure. Live subject D52125 instructed to demonstrate seasoning meats. Result: SCP-5031 spent almost 3 straight days experimenting with different combinations of foods and spices. SCP-5031 assembled the words "more, more, more" with its letter blocks after running out of garlic powder. Afterward, SCP-5003 only engages with art and music when accompanied by D52125, but it continues to be preoccupied with food preparation even when alone. 04/01/2019. Round 8 tests. Cooking. Results. Forward. Basic kitchen utilities installed in enclosure. Sharp implements withheld per security protocol. SCP-5031 used its tail to cut food. Live subject D52125 instructed to demonstrate preparation of various recipes. Recipes learned: quesadilla, taco, hamburger, fried rice, Mongolian beef, spicy chicken curry, chocolate chip cookies, sponge cake with buttercream, fudge,
I had no idea this
clam
thing was
chowder,
black.
steak, macaroons, chicken abodo, smoked salmon, and profiteroles. Afterward, SCP-5031 has a severe peanut allergy. This should be included in the revised containment procedures. I would also like to note that SCP-5031 is now a better chef than the average human. It has begun to create its own recipes. D52125 has volunteered to taste test. 30/06/2019. Update: SCP-5031 has said its first word. Salt. We are all immensely proud. 29/11/2019. Final test. Summary: SCP-5031 was given 2 months to develop a 3-course meal to serve at the Biosite 59 cafeteria for personnel working over Thanksgiving. Its selections were as follows. First course: sweet potato turmeric miso soup. Second course: duck confit with apple cider glaze and cranberry compote topping paired with butternut squash gnocchi on a bed of kale seasoned with truffle salt. Third course: a slice of spiced cassava pie topped with French vanilla ice cream and maple hazelnut syrup. SCP-5031 also debuted its original composition, Piano Sonata for 6 Hands, in a live performance broadcast from its enclosure. Personnel response was overwhelmingly positive. SCP-5031 stress levels at 0%. Testing successfully concluded. Revised documentation submitted for approval. This concludes today's lecture. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
Alright, I think that's gonna do it for this recording. I'll get y'all later.